Hello, viewers and listeners. It's great having you here again. We have today on Conflict and Terrorism Studies with Wisdom, Dr. Emeka Njoku. He recently published an article titled Merchants of Terror, Neo-Patrimonialism, Counterterrorism Economy, and Expansion of Terrorism in Nigeria. He published it in the African Conflict and Peace Building Review. Hello, Dr. Meka. You're welcome to today's program.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I think it's a very good program that you've put up, I believe it's going to serve a very important purpose in terms of, creating the needed visibility for our research, particularly scholars in Africa. We don't get that much visibility, and I think this is a very good platform.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. So we'll go straight to the questions. Uh, we want you to tell us about the background to this paper. Maybe you tell us the research question and what motivated you to write this paper.
Okay, all right. The title, Merchants of Terror, Neo-Patrimonialism, Counterterrorism Economy, and the Expansion of Terrorism in Nigeria. Well, it's over a decade since the emergence, the campaign of terror of Boko Haram and in Nigeria and the entire Lake Chad region. And the group have, continued to carry out various attacks that have destabilized the social, political, economic fabric of the Nigerian state. And the group has continued to expand. Recently, we have the emergence of Islamic State of West African province, and there have been reports of other breakaway factions of Boko Haram that are, cropping up in Nigeria. And it's really interesting to look at these. To find out these dynamics of Boko Haram, despite the huge amounts of human and material resources that have been, invested in within the security sector. It's interesting that despite this investment, we have not seen the needed result in terms of the reduction or actually the elimination of terrorism in Nigeria and the entire Lake Chad region. And so, yes, that is, very interesting. One of the things that motivated me to begin to ask that question, why is it that despite the huge amounts of money that have been devoted in curbing terrorism, that we have not seen anything? We have not seen terrorism go down. In fact, the groups are becoming more lethal. They are becoming more bold. They are even attacking governor's convoy. Recently, they attacked the governor of Borno State convoy twice. They attacked in military formation. They are becoming stronger and expanding. So why? And so, yeah, that's one of the things that motivated me into doing the research.
Great. Thank you for that clear answer. So, based on this background, you try to state your core argument. Can you state it clearly again for us to know what is the?
Okay,
So, if I'm going to say what's the core argument of this paper, what am I going to?
yeah, it's you in your question. You say it's both a debate. It's both factoring within the debate on the expansion or the rise of terrorism, and it's both an academic debate issue and also is also a policy issue. First, in the academic debate, because I think terrorism scholars have been concerned about the rise of terrorism. And one of the factors earlier, after 9/11, earlier postulations was religious ideology, US foreign policy in the Middle East and North Africa. We also have issues such as poverty. So in recent times, we've seen scholars talk about other issues such as formation of linkages with other terrorist groups. One of the things that have made terrorist group to rise and grow, and we have seen fragmentation into various cell structures. With according to Barack Mendes in his book, The Al-Qaeda Franchise, he discussed extensively on how Al-Qaeda formed various franchises, and that was the roots behind the emergence of ISIS. And we also see, particularly in the East Africa, such as Al-Shabaab exploiting the issue of clannism, a struggle for among various clans and ethnic groups within Somalia, and how they exploited that to be able to. So these were the debates about the rise and expansion of terrorism. But what I find out about, I felt that most scholars have not looked at the concept or the issue of the rentier nature of African and MENA region institutions, political institutions, particularly the security sector. They have looked at other institutions, but we have not looked at how that plays out within the security sector, how the whole issues of neo-patrimonialism within the security sector have also led to the expansion and the sustained expansion of terrorism. And that is one of the gaps that I identified in terms of the extant debates, and I tried to fill with this work. So my key arguments in the paper is that there is an inherent neo-patrimonialism or patron-client relationship between political actors, public officials, and military elites, which has led to the misuse and diversion of security funds through corrupt subcontractor practices, ghost and inflated contracts, misappropriation of security votes. Consequently, this bets a diabolical counterterrorism economy that is leading to the expansion of terrorism in Nigeria and the entire Lake Chad region.
Great, thank you for that answer. So, how did you get that data for this to test your argument?
Yeah, I did qualitative research where I did interviewed key stakeholders, people who are within the defense sector, senior military officers, you would classify as military elites. I also interviewed various civil society organizations that have worked within the defense sector, key civil society organizations that work with the defense sector, and those in charge of monitoring defense budgets, procurement, budget allocations and utilizations. So these were the categories of key respondents or participants that I interviewed for the research. So it's largely a qualitative research, which is based on interviews, which were purposely selected participants based on the purpose of selection is based on their, the roles that they have played within counterterrorism in the Northeast. Senior military officers that I interviewed have worked for years in the Northeast. They have served as commanders in various military formations. I also interviewed soldiers, they call them, of men who have, also fighting terrorism in the Northeast. So I interviewed that various categories, senior officers and younger officers, junior officers, right? So I interviewed these categories of people to really understand what is going on in terms of how these finances that have been, budgeted, how it's being utilized, and how those in the ground, those utilizing these weapons that have been produced, how they make sense of what has been given to them, and how that has, helped or not in terms of their enforcement or countering or curbing terrorism in the Northeast.
Great. Thank you very much. That must be an extensive work. So what's your primary finding?
Yes. Now, first of all, I did lots of literature search, and one of the things that motivated me was that from 2014 to 2019, budgetary allocation to this defense sector rose from 9.32 billion in 2014 to 1.76 trillion in 2019. Now, this 1.76 trillion used to be the budget for the entire country at some point, and in fact, even for other countries, but it's just for the defense sector alone. Now, this is interesting. For internal security operations in the Northeast, such as Operation Lafiado, Operation Safe Corridor, Operation Gamma Ike, Operations Crackdown, the budget for the internal security operation grew from 24.12 billion in 2014 to 75 billion in 2018. Now, these are the amounts. So the question is why we would expect that an increase in the amount of security funds would contribute significantly to the defeat of terrorist groups in Nigeria and the Lake Chad region. In reality, what we see is the growth of terrorism. You understand? And so, so I begin to then, of course, investigate this and begin to find out from military elites, from those fighting terrorism, from civil society actors. And the three issues that I underscored in the work was, number one, defense procurement and contract scam. Now, the defense the Ministry of Defense is in charge of budgetary, formulating budgets for the defense sector, but the military play key roles in terms of determining the type of weapons they need, the quantity of weapons that they need. There seems to be a form of a collaboration between both parties in terms of, first, the bureaucrats or in the Ministry of Defense impose contractors on the military elites. If you don't accept that, that's one of the things I get. They say if you don't accept these contractors, next time when you ask for money, they will tell you there is no money. So you have to accept them. You have to work with them to be able to bring, not following due process of bringing out, coming up with contractors who, would most likely not deliver on what they are supposed to do because they didn't follow due process. And so, yeah, and there's no mechanism to check on all of this. And so, yeah, these are the type of contractors that are awarded military to provide military hardwares. And there's a form of a collaboration between both parties in terms of the type of things that they deliver at the end of the day. That's one of the things. In terms of defense procurement, there's more like a contract scam that exists. So that's one of the things that I take from the research. Number two is logistics. Now, the military elites are given a lot of liberty in the management of these logistics in the Northeast. Now, in terms of its utilization, there is no form of mechanism to check on how most of these payments made to acquire some of these things, such as toiletries, such as culinary services, that the soldiers they need, in the defense system. There's no mechanism to check if the money amount paid is commensurate with what was delivered. And many of these elites, establish subcontractors such as for their spouse, like their friends and relatives, and all kinds of contracts. You provide a culinary service, you provide this. And of course, this leads to all forms of abuse and diversion of funds. The whole idea of bringing either your wife, your relative, your friend to provide this particular thing without following due process is faulty in itself. And we cannot expect that anything good will come out of such an arrangement. And of course it didn't, because when you look at what was delivered in terms of, we have seen reports where soldiers complain about the type of food that they eat, the type of things that they have all kinds of complaints. These are the roots. The roots are that it is based on a patronage system in terms of how this subcontractor things are awarded. And so when you do that, they don't provide the right quantity or the right. When I interviewed a military senior officer, he was telling me, retired military senior officer was telling me that how do you quantify the amount of vegetable budgeted and the amount that was delivered, or the quantity of meat or the rice or the fish? So as little as this sounds, but these are significant because they go a long way to affect the morale of those who are putting out their lives out there to fight. So logistics is another means of diversion and misappropriation of funds. And another issue that I discovered is security votes. Now, security vote is independent of defense budgets. All these, the ones that I just listed, is completely independent. Security vote is it is budgetary and extra budgetary allocation, ostensibly a mark for security, received by the president, governors, and local government chairmen. It's a vestige of colonialism, which was sustained by several military administration, and even in 1999, Obasanjo retained the whole idea of security votes. But security vote has become a slush fund for for governors and ruling party. For them to, it's more like a fund that they use to be able to advance the careers of themselves and their friends and their party loyalists, and not to be able to solve the problem that the money was budgeted for. Now, let me give you a rundown of, and again, one interesting thing is that you can hardly find data on security. It was always shrouded in secrecy, but we're able to garner particularly certain figures. Like in 2014, Transparency International reported that approximately 210 billion is allocated to security votes at the state level and 180 billion at the federal level, equating 1.51 trillion. That's in 2017, rather. Now, moreover, they said three states allocated less than 500 million monthly. Now, let's focus on in the Northeast. In 2014, it was reported that Bauchi states received 1.417 million monthly, that's 17 billion annually. Borno State got 806.2 million monthly, that's 9.67 billion annually. Taraba State also got 200 billion monthly, that's 2.4 billion annually. Yobe State got 316.66 million, that's 3.8 billion annually. These are huge amounts of money allocated to to fight terrorism and other forms of insecurity. But we can all attest to the fact that the country is almost going up in flames at different corners. Huge amount. This is just for 2014. This would have increased in terms of the amount of the security votes in 2019 or 2020. But what has all these huge amounts of money translated to? We can all observe what is going on. So these monies have become a fund from particularly the interviews. I conducted lots of interviews, and they were able to confirm that they use this money basically to advance their career. In fact, a particular military elite was telling me that he was talking to the governors that, look, this problem is not just mine, it's your state. And this problem is going to last for many years if you don't come out to take that initiative, use these monies that are given to you to be able to address this problem. But they don't seem to, they said, no, if you need money, go to the federal government. There's no sense of ownership, there's no sense of urgency. So there's this more like sense of entitlement. Like security vote is more like, it's my right, it's what I have earned after struggling, for years to become a
governor. Great. Thank you very much.
So it's not. And okay, I think these are the findings that I've discovered. So yeah, we could move to what this all means for.
Yes, what does this mean for counterterrorism?
Yes, like I told you, I interviewed soldiers, police officers, various categories of security agents, even the NSCDC. They're all counterterrorism security officers. They're all countering terrorism. In fact, during when I did my PhD fieldwork in 2015, I interviewed an officer in the National Security and Civil Defense Corps who told me that bullets were rationed. Rationing bullets to fight terrorism. And so you're not allowed to shoot until you're given the order to do so. If you do, you'll be court-martialed. And so you ration bullets to match with Boko Haram's sophisticated weapons. How do you expect them to work? Another officer told me that the weapons that were provided were tokumbo, what we call tokumbo, that's second-hand, like used weapons. Imagine going to fight terrorist group with a used weapon and you try to use it, doesn't work based on the fact that it's used, it's not. But the monies that were budgeted for were aimed to acquire new sophisticated weapons. But what was delivered were tokumbo. These are people fighting, saying that it's not new. So what does it all mean? It means that frontline troops in the Northeast are mostly under-resourced and under-equipped and are incapable of matching the sophisticated weaponry and tactics of terrorist groups, leading to unnecessary loss of lives. Ultimately, this problem dampened the morale of security agents in the Northeast and their willingness to fight or protect the country from terrorist incursion. I must tell you that you agree with me. There are soldiers who are retiring. Early retirements and those who there's even case of mutiny. A lot of them are running away because they are not. There's no adequate weapons or facilities that they need to in terms of even their own welfare. They are not being given what they need. They are not being given the right type of things that they need that will motivate them to fight and defend their own country. So it dampens their morale and their capacity to be able to cope and fight terrorism. Secondly, now I would say the willful decapitation by political actors, military elites, and clients have further emboldened terrorist groups. The terrorist group know, they are aware that the soldiers do not have adequate weapons. I didn't tell you that I also interviewed a commander in the Civilian Joint Task Force, and he told me that there are no weapons. And what they usually do is to go, when they want to go out, the government will call Cameroonian soldiers to join them. And the weapons that they use, the minesweeper that they use they borrowed it from other countries. It's not Nigeria. So there's not enough people, and he said most of the soldiers just do defense. They just gather and defend themselves. Nobody is going out to confront them as consistently. So these are the challenges. So there's no adequate weapon, and so we all see terrorism becoming emboldened, coming out to attack military formations. When the terrorists coming to attack a military formation where it's supposed to be, well equipped with weapons. Imagine terrorist group attacking a governor. When a governor moves, he's carrying different types of, all kinds of security apparatus. With him, the boldness to attack a governor's convoy twice shows the boldness of this terrorist group. Again, this also means that the increasing success of Boko Haram would also attract more and more. Of course, it's attracting the dwindling influence of modern organizations such as Al-Qaeda, Islamic State of Iraq, that is ISIS, which are desperately trying to project their potency to the world. And so if they are seeing these successes, they are more motivated to support Boko Haram. Because the atrocious profitability of security funds influences the sabotage. So you see that they come out to support Boko Haram because of the successes that have been recorded. Because many of these, like Barak Mendelsohn said in his work, that Al-Qaeda the reason for Al-Qaeda forming franchise is because of its dwindling influence in the world. And they're trying to more like reassert themselves. And so if there are successes in other parts of Africa or other parts of unstable part of the world, they go to those places to be able to show that they are still strong.
Great.
They give all kinds of support to show that they are still strong. So that's a problem. And of course, one also interesting thing is that it's people are making money. Political actors, government bureaucrats, military elites are making money. So it then means that the end of terrorism would mean the end of illicit funds. You understand me? And so there's bound to be subtle or intense sabotage of, counterterrorism efforts. And we have also seen reports in that regard, whereby we've seen how information, the kidnap of Chibok girls and the Dapchi girls, how soldiers who were manning the particular area would just leave, and immediately the terrorists would come and attack. So why is that all these things? It creates that impression. Of course, there's bound to be sabotage. People are sabotaging the efforts to defeat terrorism. Once there's a counterterrorism economy, there's bound to be various forms of efforts by people who want terrorism to continue, because the more there is terrorism, the more it means more money for more illegal, more diabolical money for some people. And of course, that's the argument of the counterterrorism economy that now exists in Nigeria, and that needs to be caught if we want to achieve success in defeating terrorism.
Great, thank you very much. This is a very interesting discussion, and I hope we'll have another time to discuss some of these findings, and maybe look at some of other of your researches, which has been very interesting. I've looked at some of them. They're really, really interesting. I want to thank you, Doctor. I want to thank you for joining us for this program. And please, when we invite you again, please, we will appeal that you join us.
Thank you. Certainly.
You're welcome. Please, viewers and listeners, that has been Dr. Emeka, and if you want to listen to this kind of more intriguing research and findings, please follow us subscribe to us on YouTube, listen to us on podcasts or across all devices. Remember to leave us a rating, leave us comments, and reach out to us if you would want to discuss your research findings, your recent publications at any time. My name is Wisdom Yekekbolo. Please join me again next week. Bye for now.
All right. Bye.